our attention spans are going down, right? We have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Reels, right? The developer advocate is necessary because things have to be marketed. Things have to be broken up. That technical jargon, right, that built that masterclass of a software has to be translated for the end user.
Welcome to the Unknown Options, the place where we explore the unknown options, the number one source for career apprehension and accessibility. My name is Will, and today with me, Jeremy. Jeremy, it's great to have you here today. Give us a rundown on who you are and what you do.
Hello, my name is Jeremy. I live in sunny South Florida, and I work as a developer advocate. I'm 26 years old. I'm more or less recently into tech. I'm entering my second year. I do have a college degree. I like to rock climb and weightlift in my free time. And we also have a personal ministry. So that's kind of the rundown of my life. You know, I like to read, I like tech, and I'm happy to be here.
I love it. I'm married, and we're also animal parents too. Quite a few animals. Your journey is important, so we want to highlight the good, the bad, and the ugly. For someone who might not know, what is a developer advocate?
So a developer advocate is somewhat of a coined term. You probably can't find a really solid answer on Google. I've tried. But it essentially is a mix and the bridge between the developer team and the marketing team. So my role kind of spans both. And so I do some coding, but I'm also very public facing, and I do help out with the marketing a lot by writing the documentation or recording, videos for the software that the company provides. And so if you are wondering what that is, it's almost like it's a relationship between the development team and the marketing side.
So is it kind of like in some companies could it like kind of be like called product marketing or product be a product manager almost, or is it kind of like not quite there or above that?
I would say it's another abstraction. So typically if you're running that software life cycle, you might have the product manager who's kind of like keeping track of everything. But I'm like the knight, right? I'm like the guy with the sword, poking at the marketing team, because you gotta, depending on how the team is structured, you want your developers developing. But if you have a smaller team and those are the only guys you have, they might not be writing the documentation. But if you're going to the market and you're trying to present your product to the world, you need documentation, right? So different companies have different names for a very similar role. I know Google has a development relations engineer, and I've seen different types of variations of developer advocacy, but it is looking to be a role that is imperative for a front-facing software model.
I love it. Okay, I know you mentioned in your bio that you're like fairly new to the tech industry. Can you tell us like your path and how you got started in tech and becoming a developer advocate?
Yeah, I would say, back in 2020, there was an inkling. There was like a star in my eye, but I had never really jumped on board. And then, near the end of the pandemic, I had a really good friend who, had heard of my desire to break into tech, at least at one point, because I was working in operations for supply chain. And he was already working as a developer. He was, I would say, a mid-level engineer at the time. And he was like, hey, I just happened to tutor for this boot camp. You should try it out. And at the time, I was like wondering about the price and stuff like that. But I did end up joining the boot camp. The boot camp is 1010, where we met before. But it really prepared me well, to face this job market, because the job market is a little bit wild. But it really gave me the skills necessary in order to gain the confidence, build a portfolio, and then put myself out.
Yeah, we're gonna dig deeper into, I guess, the boot camp versus college debate down further in the interview. But why is developer advocacy or becoming a developer advocate an important job, and what does it contribute to the general public or maybe even just your company in general?
So, and I'm sure you have interviewed many, many people. I have watched some of your podcasts before, the different jobs, some jobs have interesting names and stuff. Developer advocacy is one of them. But typically there is a stereotype, and I want to say it's sometimes false, but it's also sometimes true in terms of like higher level developers are engineers who, just want to shut themselves inside of a box and code all day. Right. So there comes a problem in the sense where you have a business oriented, a business focused product, and you just want to let it out there. Right. But me as a developer and, some of my peers as developers, they come from a development background. The first thing we do, if Google can't answer our question, is to go into documentation. So if you have this robust product that you might have 4, 5, 6 guys working on it, if you don't have any documentation for it, that's kind of going to look suspect, right? Especially when you're charging, perhaps tens of thousands of dollars for this service. It's like, okay, well, how's the support for the developers? It's like, well, we don't have any because we didn't have time to write it, or we didn't have the nuance per se. So part of my job is not only writing the documentation, it's writing it in a way that is attractive for the end user, right? It's not just like, okay, well, function A does this, or, Pythagorean theorem, you have different loops. And so, no, it's, hey, welcome to, we have it's a work in progress, but Vision Corp, it's a demo organization that uses the product that has a real life use case. And so part of my job is to make it realistic.
You mentioned earlier that you had like an inkling that you wanted to be in tech. You were working in supply chain. What I mean, obviously, like tech is like, I think it is, and it has been a buzzword for probably the last, like, I don't know, 5, 6 years. What made you get that inkling, and what made you want to get into tech rather than, like, let's say finance or even staying in supply chain?
If you have worked in supply chain, and if you haven't, here are some things. Supply chain, we do not have a modern civilization without supply chain. Supply chain is one of the most important industries on planet Earth today. Granted, because of capitalism and how the market is, the schedule is crazy, right? So if I were to have gone in management with supply chain, it goes from working 30 to 40 hours a week to working 45 to 50 hours a week to working 55 to 65 to the job needs to get done no matter what. And that might mean, hey, babe, I got to wake up at 1:30 in the morning. I got to go and I got to work until 9 p.m. and then do that the next day. And then someone calls out. So you do that the next day. And then, especially I worked specifically at a grocery chain. So, and I've seen it. I mean, this is my management, my upper management, and their managers. It's like some of these guys don't sleep. Like some of these guys, and good for them. Good for them. They're putting food on the table.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, I have been called in at midnight. Like, hey, we need you. We need you.
Sheesh.
And I was like, okay. They didn't force me, but they're like, hey, if you want extra money, you want to kind of relax. There was incentive towards it, and so it is. But I lived an hour away, so I'd be like, okay, so now I got to get up. Yeah, now I got to get up. There'd be some days I'd wake up at 3:00, drive to work, start work at 4:15, come back home at like 4 to take a nap, to get ready at 10:30 and go back. Yeah, yeah. So the management for that, it's you gotta that has to be your passion, right? Like that has to be what you want to do. I know it's just very hard to be doing something like that and also be family oriented. Because if you have a wife,
that makes sense.
You have kids, as a man, it's not about you anymore. So if your job is taking you away from that stuff, that's difficult to, and I don't want to foresee that happening. So I kind of like, hey, I need something a little bit more flexible, a little bit more sustainable.
Definitely. Yeah. I think tech may be like the greatest industry. A lot of people praise the money you can make in it, but like a lot of, I mean, like the flexibility is like unforeseen compared to like so many industries. Like my family, most of them work in finance, and they're all like hybrid in offices. Like I haven't worked in office in the last like 3 years, I think.
That's
Literally,
great.
so
That's
it's
great.
like yeah, so it's a whole different lifestyle. But let's talk about. I know you mentioned earlier that what got you really into the industry is a boot camp. Can you and but you're a college graduate also, so can you tell us like your experience in a boot camp? This isn't like a I love Triple Ten, but this isn't a like a promotion for Triple Ten, but we love Triple Ten. But so you can be honest, but I mean yeah, but what are the differences that you saw from like you being at a boot camp, being Triple Ten, and then your college experience, and what had you more prepared for becoming?
Okay, so that is an interesting role. To give a little bit of background to this role, I actually had applied to a full stack React Java developer for the company. And during
Okay,
the interview, he's like, I looked over your background. You know, a lot of our guys are, you know, they have some experience under their belt, right? Not, you know, a year and a half, 2 years. And he was like, but what intrigued me was your degree as well
mm,
as your technical experience, because not many marketers know about technology and not many tech people know about marketing. So that
definitely.
actually kind of saved me. Um, in terms of specifically the bootcamp, I believe genuinely that you can learn all the fundamentals you need to be prepared to work from a bootcamp. Asterisk. Okay. Asterisk. The world of tech is very, very broad. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of the people who will be listening to this and a lot of our peers are struggling right now, perhaps nailing that first job.
Yeah.
The things to remember when becoming a developer is one, you need technical breadth. So you need to touch many different technologies, but then ideally you'd also have technical depth, right? And so depth will only come with time. You can
Mm,
kind of control breadth. That's why I'm very much a proponent of you need to make things with as many different pieces of technology as you can, right? Because that, in conjunction with the boot camp, will round you out, especially in the field of tech. I know
definitely.
both, you know, both sides, right? Because I don't have a STEM degree. My degree is in
Okay.
communications, right? That's a more of marketing, more of a social science type of deal.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've seen people with tech degrees. I've seen people from boot camps. Both of them succeed. They have different skill sets typically. But
Mm, definitely.
what I've seen too is you could get a tech job without a degree. You just have to work hard. And that,
Okay.
but that should be in any industry. It's just like even finance. I'm sure you've seen some places will only hire financials professionals with either a degree or their CPA or some sort of certification that is recognized, maybe even both, right? But
Definitely.
perhaps you might see a firm, he only has a CPA, he might not have a degree behind it, but he's a good CPA, he has
Yeah.
that experience, you know.
100%.
So I do appreciate the institution of university, but I very, very, very much preach. It's called autodidact, which is self-taught, self-learner. If you can
Okay.
structure that and you can learn the information without getting into debt from the university, I 100% preach that. Because the university is
I
good for
love it.
some people, but it's not good for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are starting to
Definitely.
see that now.
Definitely. I think there's going to be a great falling away from university. It might not even be like our kids' generation, but maybe the generation after that. And it's
Yeah.
just gonna. I think the economy just gonna be so dispersed. Like it's gonna be really hard to articulate the value of college for like 90K for what?
Yeah.
Like you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
For what?
To make what? So okay. So in saying that, Do you think there's going to be more developer advocates in the future, or do you think there'll be less, or do you think it will stay the same?
I think that if someone wants to go in this direction, it is a very strategic position to be. And let me defend that, right? You will not see typically a degree or a boot camp in developer advocacy. And that's because one, a lot of people don't know it even exists. And then two, it's like it's a mixture, right? You're trying to market two kind of career paths versus one, right? And I've talked about this in some of the writings that I've had. And this isn't just Triple 10. This is by far most boot camps because of marketing.
Yeah.
They market it as software engineering, right? That is a software
Mm.
engineering route. Now, a web developer and a software engineer do a lot of the same stuff, but they're also different, right? And there's a fine line, but I have discovered that if you specifically are a developer or you specifically haven't went through that 4 or 5 6 years of engineering, the people who have who got that degree and went through that time, they get offended when you when you try to call yourself an engineer, right? And at first I didn't understand why until I actually worked with software engineers. It's there's which you could still learn all the technologies away from the boot camp, mind you, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that you are an engineer immediately after graduating from a boot camp. Say perhaps you are a developer, you could become an engineer dependent on, again, that technical breadth and technical depth, right? Because there's a whole, if you think of infrastructure, right, you have roads and buildings and stuff, and that typically needs an architect, an engineer, and then a builder. But the architect and the engineer typically make the bank, and then the builder, it could be anybody. It could be the laborers, it could be the foreman, it could be the super, the contract. But the architect needs to structure and or design a system. The engineer has to make sure it's possible. What tools are we going to bring in? And then the builder's like, hey, let's just do it. So that's kind of the same thing with software. You could have a software architect, a technical architect, a solutions architect, whatever. And then you have the engineer who will also sometimes build, who typically will build, but they're also having these higher level conversations rather than someone, perhaps, again, every company is different, but you might have a web developer who's like, oh, I have a design, let me go at it, versus what libraries are we going to use, which again, some developers decide that too, but if you're thinking about it, and again, I don't know how much your technical background is, but if you have an application called Zapier, Zapier is a small free integration platform. So if I want an email or text message, you shoot a message to it, it'll give me something simple like that. We as web developers will use that sometimes to solve a problem. The engineer is the one that built that. You know what I mean? So the engineers build the tools that the developers use.
I use Zapier all the time in my businesses. So that's a great, because I always struggle with that though, like the difference between web developers and software engineers. So that's why I always ask people what they want to be called rather than calling them. But like that was a great analogy. Okay, I love it. Okay, perfect. And that's going to culminate the first half of the interview. Great talk so far. We're gonna go to the not so speed round. It's gonna be like it is the not so speed round. We're answering questions and see what your answers are. What are 4 words that describe a developer advocate?
Give me 2 seconds. So 4 words that describe a developer advocate would be, that's a good one. Scrappy, right? Sometimes you don't have all the direction that you need, and you have to figure it out, right?
Okay.
Hopefully learn it, right? Because you have to be aware that certain things exist and then know where to look for them. Hopefully charismatic. I think charismatic will help with that. And then introspective, right? Because you have to put yourself in the position of the end user and see what they might respond to. So I think charismatic, introspective, scrappy, and the last one I said was learning.
I thought you were going to lead into the learner because, like, when I see you post on LinkedIn and everything, and since I first met you, you always strike me as a forever learner. It's like a student of the game almost.
You got to.
I read some
You
of
got.
I read some of your articles. I don't understand some of it because I'm not like in that space, but I love what you're doing. I see it.
Thank you.
Okay. What does society look like, or maybe just corporate America look like without development?
Well, if you look at how things are going, and this, again, this is a greater conversation in terms of how you see the education market. If you look at the rise of, I would say, the creator economy and the Udemy's of the world, the LinkedIn Learnings of the world, and the courses that are being released outside of the traditional institution that is university,
Yeah,
our attention spans are going down. Right? We have Instagram,
yeah,
TikTok, YouTube Reels, right? The developer advocate is necessary because
yeah,
things have to be marketed. Things have to be broken up. That technical jargon, right, that built that masterclass of a software has to be translated for the end user in a way that their attention is gotten, it's hooked in. Because the
yeah,
worst thing is to go on to try to read some documentation and it's just a bunch of jargon. It's algorithms. It's words that we don't typically use on the day to day. So it's like, okay, well, if I could write a story to explain the same information in a simple way, then that person could resonate with it. That person could sympathize or even empathize with it. And that's why I think it's a very necessary career path, especially in the realm of ChatGPT and AI, right? Because you'll see it. Sometimes people will use AI to write the documentation, and that will go for a quantities perspective, but it will not go for a qualities, because if you look at the quality and you're like, okay, this was very evidently spat out by ChatGPT, it's just like, okay, you lost
yeah.
me. You lost the credibility. There's not that social proof anymore that you guys actually invested the time to help me as the developer or the user use your product.
I love it. I love you going to like the creator model. I'm really big on like I guess it's like internet brands. Like it's like you almost see it. I mean, I'm in the sales space, and like I see so many like sales leaders in corporate America, specifically in
Yeah.
SaaS. They're all building their own little courses. You know what I mean? And it's like even like that is kind of like because they're kind of hosting it on like their own websites, so they're like fighting against Udemy, and Udemy fighting against like the university. So like
Yeah.
it's getting more and more decentralized, and it's like you need people like you, developer advocates, to break it down to like I wouldn't say dumb it down because I think I don't like to think of humanity as dumb, but like yeah, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah, but to break it down to like digestible content that people need to interact with and want to interact with, which is really hard, honestly. Like, it's really hard.
Yeah.
What's the good, the bad, and the ugly about being a developer?
So I touched on it a little bit earlier. And again, every company is different. Every company has a certain structure. But if you're in this role, per se, I am the first developer advocate of the company, right? And the people I work with are brilliant. The gentleman I work for is brilliant, but he has to run the business, right? So he can't do marketing by himself. And so I have no one to lean on. So at that point, that's where it gets sometimes difficult, right? Because I use my time wisely. I have to do research, and then I have KPIs, I have tip per se.
Yeah,
That is interesting, right? That is very interesting. That is slightly, I don't want to say difficult at times because everything is good.
yeah,
So, but that's where that is. Right? So that would be the
yeah,
ugly. Uh, the good is I get to touch, play with, and learn so many different technologies I hadn't even conceived of. Right? Like this is genuinely a software first company. It is a smaller company, but they have a really robust platform that was developed in house, and now they're ready to sell it and go forward with it. To see that high level, they'll talk about architecture in front of me, and they'll include me in those meetings and see and stuff like that. And you will see how certain technologies that you might have had in the back of your mind actually work and play with other stuff. So I've been very much in those talks, and I love that. Right? You know, you mentioned like just learning. I came from a JavaScript, mostly front end background, Node.js, and maybe a little bit of Python. But you know, now I'm learning Java, right? And Java is the OG, one of the OG languages, right? And then I'm learning how Java could work with certain Apache lines of products, or how the cloud works in greater depth, right? I had learned AWS, you know, in my previous position, and I had, you know, got certified, but to see the architecture, right, is not just engineering anymore. It's how are we going to architect this? And they'll do these like, oh, we need to talk about this, and boom, it's, you know, it's a 30-minute meeting talking about architecture, and I'll see one of the senior engineers, who's a young gentleman as well. He will actually, you know, make images and slides and stuff so we can all see it, and that's the good to me, right? It's like I get to learn things, and my horizon just broadened, right? It just opened up, and
I love it.
so yeah, no, I think the bad and the ugly was sometimes there's not much direction, rather than, hey, we want this. But the good is like, hey, I get to figure it out, and I get to learn about, you know, so many different things.
Definitely. I was gonna, you said it, but I was gonna agree. Like, hey, like with no direction, you can go in two directions. Like you can either be lost, or you can like save yourself. Almost like it's like it can go either way very quickly. Honestly. Okay, I love it. Do you see yourself staying in a developer advocacy role, or do you see yourself like going that software engineer?
So we did discuss, even before I got hired, what like a career trajectory would be, right? And it was almost like, you know, you scratch my back, I scratch your back, right? So
Okay.
it's like,
Yeah.
this is what we need now. This is what
Yeah.
we need. You know, perhaps once it's established, we have like a good release pattern, we have things, then perhaps, you know, I'm still going to be learning.
Yeah.
I still do some, coding. I still do some other stuff. It's not as in depth because they obviously don't want to break anything.
Yeah.
But it is probably upon my path to either be molded in the direction of like a sales engineer or
Okay.
something of that nature, right?
Okay.
Because, you know, you're still front facing, you're still on that sales and marketing side, but you're
Yeah.
also very much showcasing the product and then using the product to answer some of the questions or some of the POCs that prospective customer wants to see, right?
Definitely.
So you start engineering because you're like, okay, well, I didn't even know my product could do this, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let's do that. So the developer advocacy, I think, is a good stepping stone for a role very similar but a little bit more senior.
I looked at your LinkedIn to just confirm the position you were working. I saw. I think it's like the last line is like you do like customer presentations, and I thought in
Yeah,
my mind like, and that's like we. And I think in my company they call them like SCs, like sales engineers or systems engineers, but like that's like those are some of the most important roles in big and small companies because like they understand the product and they can sell it also. So you're a revenue driving factor rather than some people that just build a product. It's like, well, if you know what I mean, like we need to push a
we
product.
got to
You know
pay
what I
the
mean? Like,
bills. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So we need to push it. So it's like that's a great path and a great stepping stone if you choose to go that direction. Okay. Are you underpaid or overpaid as a developer advocate? I know it's kind of a skewed question
Yeah.
because you're the first one at your company, but I guess maybe if you weren't, I guess in theory, I guess I don't.
I want to say I'm paid, so I got the salary I asked for.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so it was I very much I inputted the salary I asked for. It was a step ahead from my previous position, and they gave it to me. You know, no arguments. Like, hey, this is what you want, take it. You know, and I think for me being brought on as new to tech, me being brought on as, hey, we're probably not going to get a return of investment for the first few months as you learn the products and the technologies that support the products. I completely agree with my salary level.
Okay, that's a fair assessment. Honestly, I like it. Okay, what's one person, book, or event that changed your life for the positive, and why?
So I think that, right, because especially as a human being in the 21st century, but even as a man, like you will have a certain few select formative moments, right? I will say that I'll go in the book route. There, one of my favorite authors. He's still alive. His name is Robert Greene.
Okay.
Robert Greene. He wrote 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction, 33 Strategies of War. He's writing a new one. It's called the Art of Sublime or the Sublime. But the one
Okay.
I'm referencing, the book, it's called Mastery, and fantastic.
Okay.
I'm about to
Yeah.
reread it. I listen to it. I'll read it. That book just changed my perspective on everything. And I'm sure as a young man, you have seen when you're growing, it's outside, even inside your household, right? You might see your parents when you're a kid. Your parents know everything. Your parents are
Yeah.
gods. And then when you start getting, you get 20, 21, 22. Oh, they're people.
Yeah.
They're people
Yeah.
too. And it's kind of the same way. It's like you're in the professional world, perhaps a corporate environment. It's like everyone that you thought was like the man or something, like if they are, then they put in work. Right? No one just
Hmm.
wakes up one day and they're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. No one just wakes up and has a yacht.
Yeah.
Like, as a man, you see, like, okay, that countless sleepless nights,
Yeah.
waking up early, I'm getting 3, 4 hours of sleep. I hope,
Yeah.
right? I'm driving in traffic, I'm driving in the rain, I'm working 60 hours a week. I'm putting in the work. And after I work 60 hours a week, I go home with a smile on my face, kiss a
Yeah.
woman, and
Yeah.
hopefully, like, just keep going. And then you might have to study. Then you might have to
Yeah.
study, and then you might have to take the dogs out, you take the trash out, do it all again the next day. Right?
Definitely.
So Mastery is a book that breaks it down. Like, it breaks it down pretty well. He will give historical examples of masters, whether that be Mozart or Elon Musk or people who are genuinely regarded as masters in their fields, like the Kobe Bryants, the people that look so good that it seems effortless. But no,
Mm.
it's because they're working 2, 3, 4 times as harder than the next guy. So it seems like they're just God given. Which again, God has a factor. There's a very large factor in this, but
Yeah.
you have to be the channel in which you receive the blessing.
I like it. I've definitely heard that book. I don't think I read it, but I like it. I've had a quote written on I have two whiteboards on the side. You can't see it, but there's a quote. It's from a book I read a while back. I forgot the name of the book, but it was the quote is "Why not? Like why not me?" Like, and it's like it's always looking at like why can't I do that too? You know what I mean? Like when I first got into like my industry, like I saw these people make a lot of money. And I was like, whoa! I was kind of intimidated, but then like I was like, wait, why can't I do the same thing? You know what I mean? So I love that. I love it. Yeah, I'm actually get that book. I'm a reading it
Please,
these days.
please.
You can
Yeah,
see. So I'm
I
looking.
see.
Okay, last question. Let's say young Tommy or Angela is watching this interview. They want to become a developer advocate. They're 18, just graduated high school. What are the steps that you give them to get to where you are?
The first and foremost thing, and again, this is reiterated upon, you have to be a lifelong learner. You should want to learn. If you have any experience in tech, you want to be a developer advocate, you need to build, but then not only build, and again, this is something that I've recently kind of started to do, you should probably write too. Right? I know I had read a book. I don't read any of his books except for his book about writing. But Stephen
Okay.
King wrote a book. It's literally called On Writing. Like, I'm not into horror. I'm not into any of that. But I read that book because everyone knows
Yeah.
who Stephen King is. And he
Yeah.
was like, you want to be a good writer? Read more and write more.
Yeah.
Read more.
It's
That's it. Like, it's as simple as that. That it's every industry. It's like, oh, you want to
yeah.
be a better salesman? Make more calls. Talk to
Yeah.
more people. Sell more times. And then you get that rhythm. So if you got a young Angie or young Tommy, it's like, hey, you need maybe not a university education, but you need an education.
Mm.
In line with that, I'm not even going to say it's a second skill. It's kind of related to the first one.
Yeah.
You need to build a network. Like, there's a lot of people all over every industry, all over the world. They got to that position because they knew a guy that knew a guy. And
100%.
they just happened to be in that right place at the right time. I heard a quote. I love the quote is, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So you got to put yourself in those doors. You got to,
Yeah.
you got to step in there. So if you're 18, you just graduated, like, oh man, I think that would be really cool. You're on the front lines and you get to help out, in the trenches with developers. Well, how do I do that? Talk to people. Talk to
Yeah.
people in those roles, similar, and ask a question. Have a coffee with them.
Yeah.
Don't be like some people. It's like, hey, is your company hiring? Well, probably not, and that's not how you introduce yourself to. I'm a human too, right? You're a human
Yeah.
too. It's like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You like that? How would I be able to position myself to get there? Do you have one or two recommendations? I don't want to take up too much of your time. People typically will respond.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That is okay. But sometimes they will. And what did you lose? You lost, a message that took you, 8 seconds to write? No. But you
100%.
might have gained a book recommendation. And then
Yeah.
you read the book. And then you're like, oh, okay. That's what he wanted to,
And
give to
then
me.
and then you can come back in a month later, hey, I read the book, because no one probably
Yes.
read the book that he told him to read.
There is even, dude, I'm grateful for him. When I when I was getting into tech, I dusted off my LinkedIn. I haven't used in years, and I just messaged the guy. Doesn't respond. Messaged him like 3 months later. Doesn't respond. He works at Meta, right?
Okay. Nice.
Messaged him like another like 4 or 5 months later, excuse me, and he said, it shows something when you are that persistent. So he's like, let me give you this. And he gave me books. I bought those books immediately. He gave me recommendations, a couple YouTube videos, courses to watch. He's like, this is what I would do. And sometimes, right, you have to be prepared for certain things too. Sometimes you might be like, oh, this is bogus. Like, I don't need to do that. I don't even work like that. But no, you asked
Yeah.
for his time. He gave you his gems.
Yeah.
Do not discard them. It's like, probably take them, do what it, or even, I don't need that right now, but let me just buy the book anyway. And then 5 years, you use that technology, or you might be in a very similar situation, and now you get to use it. But you don't
Definitely.
have that stash, that arsenal, unless you put yourself out there first.
Definitely, 100%. And you dropped another gem earlier too in your answer. It's like you would tell them to like write. I agree. I tell all of my friends, everyone I know, to make content, like either whether it's writing or video, because like with like every field is becoming oversaturated almost, in my opinion. So like,
100%.
how do you set yourself apart? Is like you have like you can literally have articles of documentation, like, oh, they really, because everyone's a portfolio at this point. Like everyone, like you know what I mean? So it's like how else can you differentiate yourself from everyone else? And it's like that's I was a podcast host for the bootcamp that we were talking about, Triple 10, and I literally got that. I was podcasting for 2 months. I think I had
Oh,
4
wow.
episodes. Yeah, I think I had 4 episodes, and I literally sent them my Well, they I think they asked for it. I don't know how they knew I had it, but I think they asked for it, and I sent them. I still interviewed for it, but I literally got that job for 10 months because I started taking action, and I was only doing it for 2 months at that
Yes.
point. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But they said like, no, yo, this is what we want to do for ours, and like you're doing a really good job, and like we want you to interview for it. And I got it because I started making content, and I literally have never stopped. Like I'm getting interviewed every month, so I think I don't care what you do. Like, and some people shrug it off, and they're like, I don't need to make content. I'm like, yo, you need to make content. I don't care
You
what you
got to.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like it takes it and it makes you said it makes you better. Like if you're engaging with the technology every day, and then you can write about it also,
Yeah.
that means you really understand it. Like it's
Yeah.
like so it's like I don't see why you I don't see unless someone's like super busy or has like something really going on in their life. I don't see why you wouldn't take like at least one time a week to make some content about what you do.
And people will consume it. Like you'd be surprised. You might not make money
Yeah,
immediately, and that's okay.
yeah,
That is fine. Do the thing to do the thing,
yeah.
and then you might reap rewards. Like I have maybe 7 articles on Medium. Um, I like 3 followers, but I have over 100 reads. Right?
Nice.
That's 100 people that took time out of their day to read something I wrote. Right. So
That's
at that point, it's like just keep going, keep
yeah,
iterating. Right? Because you don't need to blow up, but you get better
yeah,
at that thing, and then that could lead to more stuff in the future. Like
100%.
yeah. It's like, oh, you want to do a freelance article, or hey, you wanna be the podcast host for this? That's
Yeah,
perfect. That's a perfect example, right? It's just like, yeah, everyone. There's so many different things that's saturating the market right now, but
yeah,
you still have a human voice, right? You're not
yeah,
an AI podcaster. You're not, a YouTube
100%.
guru who's trying to
Yeah,
get AI podcasts. It's like it's not going to work. It's the human connection, and then just publishing something, putting yourself out there, like you
definitely,
said, will reap rewards because a lot of people don't put themselves out there. The best
definitely,
thing you could have is a personal brand right now, right? Whether you're
100%.
on Instagram or it doesn't matter. It's something that differentiates you from a bot.
Yeah, 100%. And then the thing is too, people are like, well, someone else is already doing it. People follow people because they trust them, and a lot of times like they look like them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
a lot of my followers are African American. Like, why do you think? You know what I mean? But it's a different
Yeah.
audience. So like, I'm probably doing the same thing as a lot of people from different backgrounds. But it's like people follow different people because like
Yeah.
how they talk, how they look. It's not necessarily bad or good, but it's just like you have an audience for you. It's just you tap into them. Let me
Yeah, no,
know.
100%. 100. I see so many examples of this, and you're right. And that's why, I like this podcast. It's like you ask people who might work in different jobs
Yeah,
questions that they might not be asked every day. And
yeah,
then again, like you have a project manager. You had that recently. Like no one woke up one day and it's like, I want to be a developer advocate, right? But if someone's looking it up on YouTube, it's going to pop
yeah,
up now. And I've seen you
yeah,
have a lot of different people that come from different backgrounds, and I think it's important that not only you could pivot yourself and put yourself there with them, but then their voice could be heard too, right?
definitely.
It's like now I could educate people, and then hopefully we don't have 300,000 people a year trying to be software engineers. Maybe
Exactly,
they could pick another role, something that's still
exactly.
related, but might not be like what they, intended. I've seen
100.
someone, oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, no, you're
Uh,
good. You're good. I was agreeing.
I have a friend who I haven't spoken to her in a while, but she was a nurse.
Okay.
And I actually have a lot of friends that are nurses. And I was actually about to go down that route. And then COVID happened and kind of was like, yeah. But yeah, she was a nurse. She's been a nurse for years and she makes really good money. And
Mhm.
then she adopted 3 boys and now she does real estate.
Mhm.
But one, I just think don't go into a profession because you might be comfortable.
Yeah.
It's 2024. You have, if you live here, if you live in America or if you live in another, country that could provide you with those opportunities, try it out. Try it out, especially if you're young. I mean, if you're anything under 60, I think you got it. And then even over 60, like, you figure it out. You know,
Yeah, I mean, too, because like I don't think so. It's like, obviously you live for God, but then it's like God wants us to enjoy our life too. So why spend my thing was like, why spend like 40 years doing something I hate just to make money? You know what I mean? It's like there's ways to make money and not necessarily do something you love, but maybe enjoy from time to time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Try different things out. Again, you're a product of your environment and your choices. Typically. So,
Definitely.
you know, again, I come from a similar background. You know, I'm a Christian too. But not only, you know, does God want you to be happy, He wants you to work. He wants you to excel. If you look at the book of Proverbs, you know, he who is a master at his work will stand before kings.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you got to work. You got to work. And I think that your best work, you know, whether it be your vocation or something, hopefully would be something you want to do. And then since you're giving your one, you know, you're reflecting that aspect of God, you know, right? If God is a creator and you're creating something, you're producing something, then how much more of a reflection can you be?
I think there's no higher place to go than God. So I think on that note, we're gonna I don't think there's nothing that we can talk about other than that. So, and I was looking. Yeah, I actually have the book, the Stephen King book you mentioned right
on
here.
writing. Yeah,
I bought it like probably a couple months ago. I wanted to get better at my writing. I actually started this podcast as a blog. I wrote like 30 articles, but then I pivoted to video. But Jeremy, it's been a great interview. Give like, I guess, like final words of advice. Any shout out to you? Like, you know, you have a blog, put all that stuff in. I'll put in the thumbnail as well.
The final thing is honestly seize the day, right? Do the thing to have the power. Like, yeah, I've said some weird quotes, but honestly, I think that nothing changes if nothing changes. If you truly desire something, that's one, within grasp, and two, not of a degeneracy. But if you truly desire something worth merit, you should just go after it. Again, don't persecute me for this. It doesn't matter what mommy and daddy says. Doesn't matter what, you know, your baby mama says. Doesn't matter anything. Go for it. So long as you're not hurting someone else in the process. If you have 6 kids you have to feed, you know, maybe don't write that book right now, but go to work and write the book during work. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but
100%.
We, again, with you know, the permission from above, are the arbiters of our own fate. It's time to stop playing the blame game and really try to do what we want to do, and then iterate over it. Don't get discouraged if you don't get any views. Don't get discouraged if you don't get any subscribers or followers. It doesn't matter. You're building up a portfolio. Like, it's not only that, right? You're going to be better by iterating. And so, again, the best thing to do: wake up every day with intent, express gratitude, and just go after it. And I think that's all I have to say.
Man, I love it, man. I love it. Man, y'all, I can't say nothing else. Y'all go follow Jeremy on LinkedIn and his blog. I'm going to link it in the bio. Thank y'all for tuning in with us. Y'all have a great night. Comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you.